Craig is the VP for APAC Cisco Consumer Products. He's responsible for the geographic efforts of CCP's functional departments and sales operations. This includes retail distribution and online retail. Craig, right?
So wow, Clay, you did raise the bar. It's quite interesting, saying that to executives we have to present well and speak well, and just to hear someone like you come up and do this instead of good bar. So let me start off by thanking you for coming here today. It's quite exciting for me to see more of the Cisco family come to this office, because this office is the Cisco, part of the Cisco offices available for our staff. As you can see here, it's open area. And so the topic I'm going to talk to you about today is about leadership. And I really want you to think about the opportunity you all have at the moment with Cisco. It's probably never been better than any other time in the history of Cisco for you to be part of it and thinking about aspiring to be leaders. If you're a leader now and you want to get to higher levels, now is not a better time. And why do I say this? We've just entered into 30 additional adjacency markets. So what that means for all of us is there are more opportunities for our staff to move into new areas that Cisco hasn't been in. You need to think about this. When you think back, we were switching and routing, now 30 new adjacencies. And quite frankly, John's not stopping there. John has already come out and said we want to go to 50 adjacencies. Now, you start to think, everyone's scratching their head, how could we possibly do this? How can Cisco come from mainstream switching and routing into 50 potential new markets, new technologies? The complexity, the go-to-market, just the resources we need to do this. That is the opportunity, I say to you today, you have as part of the Cisco family. And I think it was mentioned before, the one Cisco family. But I think Rob Lloyd has really brought up a good point that one Cisco is key to our success. I think too often we've been operating in our silos and not bringing the full might and power of Cisco together. So that's my opening. So why should we aspire to be leaders in Cisco, and what's the opportunity? I think this is really good. So me as a leader, what's my background? First, I want to give you a bit of a background. What are my values as a leader, and then sort of what are some of my thoughts you may want to take away and think about when either being a leader or wanting to be a leader. So first, just background. I've been with the company now coming up to 11 years. I've started off in sales in Australia, in Melbourne. Moved up to Singapore, coming up to 9 years. When I first came up, I was put in a role to set up a voice division. So I said, if any of you know Benny Lee, I was the first version of Benny Lee. I set up voice, so you can see the comparison between me and Benny. So I was to set up the voice division for Asia Pac. Now, this is an Australian person, and you probably know our personalities. We're pretty gung-ho, but I had to go. First I go to India, and a lot of admiration for our Indian colleagues and the culture, because Australians and Indians were very similar. We're probably better cricketers. But I really enjoyed going there and learning about that culture. Then I went to Korea, then I went to China, and the complexities of our culture of this region, you start to appreciate people are different. And that was a big light bulb for me when I came up here and said, wow, this is not quite the same. And I'll share a story that I had a local Singaporean person join my team, and not being used to the Singaporean culture, I just told this guy a really exciting thing about his job, something he was going to do, and he just looked at me and didn't change expression. And I thought, well, what have I done? Didn't I communicate? This is like a big opportunity, and still no expression. So I'm like, uh-oh, I've got a problem here. So I'm scratching my head. This is my first interaction with the Singaporean, and I think, well, what do I do here? Maybe you shouldn't be on my team. Now, fortunately, I didn't make a rash decision in saying, oh, should I move him out of the team? What I did was I sat back and looked at him perform. And that individual became my star performer. And he still is a star performer for Cisco. But in that first interaction, I'm like, wow, this was a real eye-opener for the Singapore culture. So the takeaway as a leader when I came up to do the voice was take it in. Don't judge cultures by your own experience or your own culture, because we are all different. And everyone has values to bring that may not be as obvious to you till you start to understand why people behave the way they do. So the next role I did was came in to be country manager of Singapore. And I got fortunate to work with Joey and others. And, you know, at the time when I came in, morale was probably at its lowest. The country had just continually spiraled down. We went from about $150 million business here to when I took over was about a $72 million business. So